Hello, everyone, and welcome to Scaling Agile to the Enterprise. My name is Kelly Emo, and I'm the Director of Lifecycle and Quality Product Marketing here at Hewlett-Packard. And my purpose today is to share with you some insights with respect to Agile development and how to scale it out into a larger enterprise, and what does that mean to the quality and testing organizations. I'm going to share with you some of the business drivers that are driving organizations to scale Agile, things that you could be seeing in your own organizations. I'm going to share with you how HP is helping organizations to scale Agile, and then double click or drill down specifically into some best practices around QA and testing, and some things for you and your teams to be thinking about as you prepare to participate in this scaled Agile effort. So let's go ahead and get started. So again, I'm going to start with a quick description of why there's such a strong need for agility now. What are the drivers we're seeing in the industry? Then I'm going to spend some time defining what does Agile mean at scale, with a bit of an introspection on the Scaled Agile Framework. And then we'll go into some of the HP approaches for QA and testing and how software tooling can actually help you. It's interesting today when you look at the application space, and I'm pretty sure that all of you are living this day in and day out in your respective industries. Whether you're in a commercial organization, financial services, healthcare, transportation, or whether you're in a government organization or agency, we're seeing relentless pressure for new styles of applications that engage users, such as mobile applications, social applications, interactive mashups from APIs that are out in the internet, but a very strong demand for these types of applications that align to the user, keep up with user preference and need, so in essence change frequently, and provide a delightful user experience. On the mobility side, we're seeing hundreds of new styles of mobile applications and types of devices being added every month. We have, a vast number of mobile devices connected. By the year 2020, we think there'll be over 100 billion. When we think about application architecture, we've seen a very fast build up to composite application styles. This has been in the works for quite some time. I was involved in the early years of SOA, service-oriented architecture, which really was an architectural foundation to support composite applications. They're no longer silos. They're made of components that come together, are integrated to meet a business process or a customer need. We're seeing really unrelenting demand in speed. Business users are expecting us to deliver new capabilities on a weekly basis. By 2020, we think it could be a couple of times a week. That's the average release cadence for an application. And then we see the influence of things like cloud and the API economy. And all of this is changing the application experience for those that develop applications, those that test applications, and those that are responsible for the delivery. And that's all of you. Up in the right-hand corner, you'll see a little piece of research. It's called Enterprise 2020. HP actually went out and did social engineering around this process, or they have social reach out, basically. We reached out to over 1,000 people in the industry, CIOs, VPs of apps, testing teams, developers, operations, and allowed them to participate in survey research and answer questions about what they thought the enterprise was going to look like in 2020. A lot of these data points come from that research, and it's up on the hp.com website. I'd encourage you to take a look. It's an interesting read. And this really summarizes the pressure from business. As we've all striven, trying to think of the right word there, as we've all tried to align with business more and more over the last decade, I would say that IT organizations are becoming more successful at getting a seat at the table, really being a business partner. But on the flip side, business is now expecting a much faster and richer delivery of applications. And this is data from Forrester Research, a leading analyst firm, and they have indicated that 78% of the applications initiatives that are being delivered in less than 2 months still have pressure from the business to be delivered even faster. So the pressure for speed is unrelenting. And what this is doing is pushing application teams to build in processes and capabilities to deliver faster. But the flip side of that equation is that speed also brings risk. With this push to go faster, with this composite application architecture, with interdependency between the components, we're bringing in more and more points of risk on a daily and weekly basis. So what's key to this equation is as we look at processes to deliver faster, we also have to be seamlessly weaving in processes for quality throughout that application lifecycle. So with that backdrop, let's talk about how quickly Agile is catching on and how we can use techniques like the Scaled Agile Framework to be successful in not only delivering with speed, but with quality. Here's a few data points about the surge in adoption of Agile. And you see some of these numbers of organizations that are already using Agile on a widespread basis, those that are using Agile along with Waterfall, and 83% are planning to implement Agile in the future. So if your organizations are not talking about Agile yet, they're going to be very soon. One of the issues with Agile, however, is that while teams might become more effective at delivering quickly, they need to be able to bring it together into a release that's actually going to deliver value for the business with high quality. And what we hear a lot of times is that Agile actually sometimes builds in more risk if you don't keep quality in the processes, or if your teams work independently and they're not collaborating together. So I really like this quote from Dean Leffingwell at the Scaled Agile Framework. We've had Moore's Law for hardware and now software is eating the world, but development practices haven't kept up. Agile is showing greatest promise, but it is developed for small teams. So we have to look at a new approach that allows us to harness the power of Agile, but apply it to a large enterprise. So enterprises are responding, and I'm hearing more and more and engaging in more discussions about scaling Agile to get the benefits of time to market, along with higher quality and ultimately greater satisfaction. Scaling Agile, however, is a journey, and this is a point I want to leave you all with. It requires not only engineering new processes and leveraging tools and software, but also aligning your organization. You need to be breaking down those silos between the portfolio planning organizations, those that are responsible for enterprise release trains and projects, and then your individual Agile development teams, and ensure that quality is infused every step of the way. I also like this quote from Deming. A system must be managed. It will not manage itself. Left to themselves, components become selfish, competitive, independent profit centers, and thus destroy the system. The secret is cooperation between the components towards the aim of the organization. Think of how that applies to your organization. Do you have silos between your QA organizations, your Agile development teams, your business analysts, and the project and portfolio teams that are setting strategy? The aim and goal of Scaled Agile Framework is to break down those silos, support it with process, with visibility, with software, and alignment on common goals. So let's get started. When you think about a roadmap to get your teams effectively scaling Agile and maintaining quality, you want to equip your individual development teams for success, give them an environment that enables them to develop and test and have complete visibility against the user stories and the goals of the particular sprint, then roll that up to the larger enterprise release and align that to portfolio as well. So you're equipping your teams for success, but you're also enabling scale of Agile to the enterprise, and then ultimately you're going to connect the dots into operations, be thinking about applying DevOps and continuous delivery principles, so you're not only developing in an Agile way, but stacking the releases up, but you're actually able to respond and deliver when the business needs it as well. That's another presentation, however, so we'll leave DevOps to a second chapter. So there's a framework to guide all of us when we think about Scaled Agile, and that's the Scaled Agile Framework, or SAFe. I encourage you all to go to the Scaled Agile Framework website and become familiar with SAFe. You can actually click on an image on the website, similar to what you see here in this presentation, and it will actually walk through each one of these personas, what their roles potentially are in the enterprise with Scaled Agile, what are some of the key processes and best practices to guide them. It does not make any assumptions about software. It talks more about process, handoff points, goals, and aims. We have actually applied the Scaled Agile Framework to our software, and we can implement the Scaled Agile Framework processes and best practices using our tooling. HP just achieved Scaled Agile Gold Partnership, and that means that we have been certified to the Scaled Agile Framework. And as I walk through some of the capabilities, I'll demonstrate a few examples of where that is basically Scaled Agile in action. So I mentioned with respect to scaling Agile that it's really a journey that involves people, process, and technology. So when you think about your organization, you think about scaling Agile, you want to be thinking about the different roles that are going to interact together, where are their handoff points, and what's the visibility that you need to achieve between these different organizations. So it starts with the team, and you have your Agile teams that are developing features against user stories. One thing that's really critical to all of you and all of us is that testing needs to be sitting alongside the development team. We need to ensure that to be Agile, we're not just delivering, but we're delivering with really high quality. And we don't want to fall into the trap of doing something that we like to joke about calling scrummer fall or water scrum fall, where maybe your development teams are developing iteratively, but then you have to throw it over to a testing team to do all of the testing. And if they haven't been involved side by side, it's a hurry up and wait scenario. So you want to be bringing your testers in as part of your development teams, your Agile feature teams, and you want to give them an environment where they can collaborate together. Testers can see the changes that are being made to the code in real time and be developing test cases and automations alongside that. And that continuous integration processes can be applied such that every time you're checking in and creating a new build, you're able to run tests against that. And I'll double click on that in a little bit. And then being able to give the visibility to your release train teams, those that are looking at bringing multiple outputs from the Agile feature teams together to create an Agile release, which basically delivers against a business requirement. They need to have that visibility as well. And so there's those interlock points between the Agile feature teams and the release teams. They need the visibility of how this is all coming together. And you also apply integration testing at that point. Also, at the end of the day, you want to keep what your different release teams, their progress and what they're doing aligned with your project and your portfolio. So as your business strategies evolve, you're able to instantly reflect that across your enterprise release teams and your Agile feature teams. Visibility across from the portfolio to the projects, the releases, and the Agile features is key. And I'll show that in action. So this is a very simple architecture of the HP software that enables Scaled Agile. And it's really multiple components that come together. And what we have done is created the integration points so that you can get that visibility between the Agile teams, the enterprise releases, and the project and portfolio. So you see on the left-hand side in green, that's Agile Manager. That's our purpose-built Agile solution that's empowering those Agile teams, developers and testers sitting side by side to deliver the features against the user stories. And we can synchronize that with ALM, Application Lifecycle Management tools that are used widely in the industry, such as HP ALM, where you're doing your larger business requirements, you're managing your enterprise releases, how those Agile teams to come together, and also managing all of the quality requirements, the test planning, the test lab, the test execution. We're able to keep those things coordinated and together. And then we can integrate it with project and portfolio management. You see the box in gray, which takes you up to the business level. You also see a couple of other things that can be added to the equation. Integration into service management. So if defects and issues are found in production, they can be instantly rolled back into the backlog and potentially prioritized as part of the next sprint. So let's double click a little bit on Agile Manager. Like I said, it's really a purpose-built solution for Agile teams. You see here a very simple screenshot. This is actually showing inside Agile Manager where you can look at build summaries and status of your developers' builds. And you can actually apply that and align it to your user stories and your progress. Agile Manager is a full software solution that gives you project management, user story management, defect management, integrates with dev tools so you can get that visibility on things like build and analytics. One of the things I mentioned earlier as well is that Agile Manager can be synchronized with application lifecycle management tools. And so here's where you're synchronizing your requirements to your user stories, and you're synchronizing defects found in testing, defects found in production, with the user stories and tasks inside Agile Manager. So you're able to keep your Agile teams focused on their sprint goals, yet having that visibility on how the quality is being executed against their sprint and how it's all coming together to support the enterprise release. This is a simple slide that shows some of this entity mapping. I don't want to go through this in detail, but I just want to let you know that one of the things that we've done at HP Software is thought hard about how the activities that are occurring in the larger application lifecycle management landscape with quality and testing teams. Maybe you still have a center of excellence working and supporting your Agile teams. How do those activities stay aligned with your Agile sprints and your Agile dev and test efforts? And that's where the synchronization comes into play. It's also important for your testing teams to have complete visibility into what your development teams are doing. So if you click under the covers of what we support with Agile Manager and ALM, we have an architecture called ALI, Application Lifecycle Intelligence. It's designed to pull data out of the development tools, your build systems, your open source systems like Jenkins, your source code management, and even your developer's IDE. Pull that information up so you can see what inside your sprint, what code has been completed, what code might have changed, what's the status of your builds, what's the status of the tests that have run against the builds, and how is the quality of the code evolving within your Agile sprint. This is really key when you're doing stand-up meetings every day. Giving your dev and test teams that visibility is vital to successfully ensuring that quality becomes part of your Agile effort. Here's a double click on the kind of insights that we can bring in to Agile Manager through the Application Lifecycle Intelligence interface. And here you see a release where you can click down in that release context on how many defects do you have, how many code changes have been made, what's the status of your build, and so on. You can even click down to an individual defect, what lines of code are impacted by that, and who is the developer responsible. This is going to help you in those stand-up meetings know instantly your priorities and the status of your quality. So I talked a little bit about lifecycle management. ALM solutions do have a strong role to play when you talk about scaling Agile. Because while your effective development teams and testing teams are operating in their sprint context, they need to come together for your Agile release trains or your enterprise release trains, depending on the terms that you use. Application Lifecycle Management is going to keep track of cross projects and your enterprise releases and overall quality and readiness for release. It's also the place in which you're going to manage your testing resources. And so our solution, HP ALM, is designed to enable all of these users to participate. So your Scrum Master, who may be using Agile Manager, can be integrated with ALM through the synchronizer. Your functional testers are going to use testing tools, such as HP Unified Functional Testing. And all of the results of those tests are going to end up in HP ALM. Plus, if you create automated assets, they can be shared inside the HP ALM repository. So ALM is a key solution when you talk about scaling Agile beyond the single team across your enterprise into your different enterprise release trains. Here's a nice quote from one of our key customers at Specsavers. They use Agile Manager and ALM together to be able to scale Agile in their enterprise with quality. And you see the point, it's increased visibility and better collaboration. So what they're getting is lower risk, higher quality delivery. Now, I wanted to spend just a couple of minutes also on continuous testing, which is really a success factor for Agile at scale, delivering solutions to your enterprise that are going to meet the needs of the business, Agile, not fragile. So as you're moving at Agile speed, it's important that quality is continuously being infused in your processes, that testing becomes a part of all of the continuous integration activities you have going on your Agile teams. So what we're doing is we're bringing in test automation for both performance and functional testing as part of continuous integration. Very simple picture here of what continuous testing really looks like. We're talking about as your Agile development teams are developing, they're going to be checking in their code and then building it, verifying that build. And they're going to be doing that on an iterative basis, most likely nightly. Now, what you want to do is you want to be able to achieve and engineer an environment so that as you build, check in the code and build, you do your build verification, and then you run your regression tests and load tests against that build every night. Then you capture the results of those tests and immediately infuse them into your software that your Agile development teams and your QA teams are using to stay connected and collaborating and to accurately know the state of quality at any step in the process. And so I had showed you earlier Agile Manager and ALM, and being able to bring in information from the development environments and the build systems, but also bring in information from the testing activities so that you know every morning at your stand-up meeting the state of quality of your solution. So how do you do this? You actually ensure that you have test automation capabilities that can be triggered in a continuous integration process. And even better, because we're talking about nightly continuous integration, if you can apply automated provisioning of your testing and development infrastructure, you can get humans out of the process of actually having to stand up the underlying resources to support the build and the test. So in this continuous integration process, your developers check in their code, they do their build, you run a build verification against it, then you run a regression test against it and a load test, wrap all that up, information, results of that into a package that's delivered through your software to your teams so they instantly know the results. And what you're able to do is run these regressions within each sprint, and as your teams become more mature and advanced in their testing processes, you're going to get to the point where you're building automation alongside code. So a great place to start is to use exploratory testing and manual testing within the sprint and have your automations done so that you have no more delay than sprint +1. So that's kind of a starting point. You'll be doing manual testing on the new code being built within the sprint, but your regression tests are going to, automated regression tests are going to pick up everything to sprint -1. But again, as you apply more modern processes, test-driven development, you get your testers and developers working side by side, you can actually start developing automation within the sprint itself, and then have your continuous integration process actually run against the entire code set. That's really the ultimate goal. And you'll still keep longevity testing going outside of the sprint cycle in doing hardening. Some people do hardening sprints, or having an integration team that's doing integration testing and overall scalability testing alongside your Agile process. This is a nice graphic that ties it all together and shows how the HP software solutions can integrate together and support this process. So if you think about taking continuous testing of the enterprise, you're using your application lifecycle management solution as your repository for your testing assets. So you're not replicating or duplicating test automation assets, but leveraging and sharing test automation assets across teams, especially if you're doing component-based testing and composite architecture. Then you have your solutions for exploratory testing like HP Sprinter, which is a manual testing tool. But you're capturing your testing activities as well and leveraging those assets to accelerate creating test automations, and then being able to integrate your automated testing solutions into your continuous integration process. And just as an example, HP recently completed an integration between our unified functional testing solution, which is our software for test automation, and continuous integration solutions like Jenkins and Hudson. So you can actually check in a build and immediately trigger an automated test set or regression test against that build. And finally, just one quick mention of portfolio management. It's beyond the scope of this presentation, but the final step to scaling Agile is truly aligning your Agile development efforts, rolling that up into your Agile release trains or your enterprise release trains, but ensuring that all of this activity is constantly planned against your business strategic priorities, and your portfolio priorities that come out of that are represented as epics. And those epics are continuously measured and assessed so that they're in line with the goals of your features and your Scrum teams that are doing user stories. So you're keeping that steel thread of alignment all the way from portfolio to enterprise releases to Agile teams that are doing the development itself. So I covered a lot. And the whole idea is just to whet your appetite on what scaling Agile is all about, why it's important to you, and as testing and QA teams, what are some of the things you need to be thinking about to participate in the Agile teams, participate in bringing it together as enterprise releases, and really start to engineer things like continuous testing to ensure quality stays at the center of your Agile development. Here's just a small graphic on how you can get started Most people are developing right now plans to support Agile teams and starting to bring those teams together into programs or Agile release trains. So I would say most organizations I run into are really working at the team and program level. You can see how some of the HP software solutions support those efforts. But I do have a number of initiatives with HP customers that are working at scaling Agile all the way up into the portfolio and seeing quite a bit of success. So as you think about where your organization is on their journey, think about whether your teams are being equipped with the solutions and software that will support them and make them successful. And are they looking for those connect points, those collaboration points between testing, between development, between enterprise release planning and the portfolio? Just to summarize, 3 key success factors for Scaled Agile. Kind of 3 things to think about as you walk away from this presentation. Collaboration is king. It's absolutely important to have successful Agile delivery with quality, that your teams are collaborating, your development teams, your testing teams, the teams are responsible for business requirements, your enterprise release and DevOps teams, and ultimately your business organization and your portfolio. You want to collaborate to scale Agile faster and enable those teams to have integrated insights. And that's where our capabilities with Agile Manager, Application Lifecycle Management, and Project and Portfolio Management play a role to give you that line of sight and that visibility as you scale from sprint, an Agile team, to features that come together in an Agile release train, all in an enterprise release being delivered out into operations, and then all the way up into business priorities and your portfolios. You want to be thinking about engineering in processes that support both fast delivery, velocity, and quality. So continuous testing. Infusing testing into your continuous integration process, absolutely critical. And you want to be able to sustain what I like to call complete lifecycle agility, so that you're not agile now, but then having to rewind when business priorities change. So think about how your organization can stay in sync with the business and the PMO. And take a look at the Scaled Agile Framework. It's a great guide to help you understand how to apply these principles within your organization. If you're interested in HP Agile Manager, which is a great starting point for your Agile teams, give it a try. You can come to the hpagilemanager.com on our Pronk by HP website, and you can get a free trial for 30 days. Start playing with it. There's a lot of video, a lot of tools to get you familiar with it. And then we have a number of flexible packages to actually start to use Agile Manager. So I hope you enjoyed this quick tour of the Scaled Agile Framework and its implications on quality and testing. And follow us on HP Software ALM. We have constant interactive conversations around things like continuous testing, Agile development, and ALM. So I look forward to keeping the conversation going with you all at EuroSTAR, and have a great day.